Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Chief Michael Geier of the Rio Rancho Police Department. Behind him, you will see represented the assisting law enforcement agencies from around the metro area that assisted us with the investigation, the command staff from the Rio Rancho Police Department, the mayor, city manager of the city of Rio Rancho, and again, representatives of several other law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here today. I also want to offer thanks at this time for the multi-jurisdictional response we received from other law enforcement agencies in the state of New Mexico. Without their help, we probably wouldn't have had a successful conclusion to this incident, this tragic incident. We also appreciate the support from the community itself. There's been a great outpouring of support. In your package, you'll see a fund that will be set up and some other information as far as regarding helping the family. I'll give you an overview today of the events, what occurred last night, starting at about 8:04 p.m. In our city. I'll give you as much as I can, and then we'll open a period of time at the end for questions. Our officer that we lost was Gregg Benner. Gregg Benner was a retired U.S. Air Force. He started with us on February 1st, 2011, just about 4 years with our agency. Gregg was 49 years old. He is survived by his wife and 5 adult children. Basically, the estimated timeline of what happened last night is Officer Benner was in the area of Pine Tree and Southern, and he had made a traffic stop. It started out as, for all practical purposes, a routine traffic stop, something our officers do daily. Officer Benner is a hardworking, very motivated officer, and so I believe he was just following up on the inquiries he was making. There was a female driver at the time and a male passenger. Subsequent to his investigation, he had run the male passenger and had some conflicting information, and he approached the passenger at the scene of the first stop, at which point, for some reason, the vehicle took off. And so there was a short pursuit through the parking lot by the Albertsons, and a second traffic stop was effected near the library. What happened there, the details are still coming in. We probably won't have all of them for sure, but we know Officer Benner approached the car. The male passenger opened fire, striking and fatally wounding our officer. He fell. There was a radio broadcast that went out indicating he was in distress, and within minutes, if not seconds, there was citizens and EMS and our officers on scene to try to render first aid. He was transported to UNMH Hospital at the emergency room, where he subsequently succumbed to his wounds. After he was shot, the female remained on the scene, and the male fled in the vehicle, which the description was given out last night. That broadcast went out citywide as well as far as we could reach in terms of trying to get local law enforcement on the lookout for the offender. We immediately started investigation, impromptu task force with agencies from the FBI, Albuquerque Police Department, Bernalillo County Sheriffs, and the state police at that time, as well as assistance from other local jurisdictions. Some information was developed which identified a preliminary identification of a possible suspect, and the investigation continued for hours through the night, at which point information was given as far as a possible location where he may be located. Surveillance was conducted, a vehicle was seen, and officers in plain clothes conducted surveillance to try to identify for sure that this subject was in the vehicle. There were 3 offenders in the vehicle at that time. During that surveillance, the suspect committed another violent crime. They committed a robbery. Following that, our officers initiated a traffic stop with state police, and the suspect fled. There was a short pursuit, and at which point they were taken into custody in South Valley. Basically, at this time, the suspect has been identified as our offender, and charges will be pending. We're working with both the district attorney in this district, the 13th district, as well as possible federal charges that may be related. As I get into his background, you'll see the significance of that. The female in the truck at the time of the stop is cooperating and is considered a witness at this time. She is being held on previous charges relating to probation violations. The suspect is an Andrew Romero. He was born 4/29 of 1987. He's 28 years of age. He has an extensive criminal history, including a 3-year stay in the Department of Corrections for a manslaughter charge in 2006. And he has previous convictions on several more violent crimes, including weapons charges. At the time of the stop, and I'm sure that's what drew Officer Benner's attention, was that he did have an outstanding warrant for probation violations, and they were valid last night. At this point, again, I want to acknowledge that the FBI, New Mexico State Police, Albuquerque Police Department, and Bernalillo County were here through the night. The cooperation and teamwork was amazing. There was a sense of relief when the suspects were taken into custody around 4:30 in the morning, which led all our officers to have some kind of closure for the evening and at least move forward. We do have a memorial fund that's set up at any Wells Fargo bank, and you have the account number on your sheet. And for information, there's going to be a candlelight vigil at Haynes Park in Rio Rancho across from Intel at 8 p.m. tonight. Basically, that's the overview, and at this point I'll open it up to any questions from the media.
Chief Geier, this is unprecedented in your department's history. How hard has this been on not only yourself but on this department today?
Well, you never get used to this, no matter how much experience you have, whether this is the first or 20th time. But this is a tight-knit department, a very close, family-oriented department. Officers that came to the scene last night had dinner with him, when family members. It hits very hard when it's that close in a small department. You have more of an opportunity to see these officers every day, from passing in the hallway to actually working assignments with them, or some of the officers, he had been on an overtime detail up in Red River, and he actually was with a team of officers that went up there and rode back with one of the officers that happened to be one of the first officers on the scene. So as you can see, it impacts us, and it'll hit us close to home as we move forward.
Chief, could you tell us, what was your favorite thing about Officer Benner? What did you admire most about him?
Well, you know, he had an English accent, and he was a real quiet, dry sense of humor type of guy. You know, just quiet, but from what I've heard, and I mean from seeing his work record, this guy was a hard charger. He was out there, and that's probably why he was still out there. You know, he had a high incidence of, he made a lot of traffic arrests, so I mean, very active and very dedicated, but he loved his job. And that's probably what I admired the most about him, is here's a guy that had a full military career, started a second career in law enforcement, and just was like a 21-year-old kid again. He had the energy of that kind of youthful, you know, invigorance and whatnot that kept him going, and how can you not admire that? Thank you.
Chief, you mentioned that this suspect, Andrew Romero, committed another robbery right before he was arrested. Was this a robbery of a business, of a person? Give me more details on that particular part of this incident.
Yes, I mean, it's still under investigation, because I believe it happened in Albuquerque from listening to the radio traffic that was going on. I believe it was a gas station.
Okay.
So, and it was during the course when they were doing the surveillance.
Chief Geier, this department has lost 3 officers in, I believe, the last 8 years. It's far more than the surrounding departments, and it's such a small department as well. Have you thought about that?
Well, I mean, basically, they're the smallest department in the nation. Nobody is vulnerable or not vulnerable to this type of, and this is the kind of mentality that exists. Is I don't want to classify it as open season on cops, but people are more willing to shoot a police officer in cold blood. And Rio Rancho, the close proximity to Albuquerque Metro, and we are a growing city, and we have Sandoval County. It's a fairly big region, and criminals will sometimes seek these areas to commit their crimes because of the very reason they think that it's a smaller department. So we're all ready for it. I think there isn't an officer in this department, especially in light of what you mentioned, that we have lost officers, that we try to be hyper vigilant and extra careful and watch out for one another, but you just never know. You can't predict when this is going to happen.
Can you talk about Andrew Romero a little bit? How bad of a guy is this? I mean, looking at his criminal history, just pulling it up quickly, it looks like he had a warrant issued on just a couple days ago for robbery, a laundry list of charges.
Well, what I can say is, it doesn't make any sense to us sometimes when these people are still out and about. For whatever reason, he is a known gang member, involved in narcotics, a nexus to violence and weapons. I mean, it's, basically we need to address this at some point in the state to make sure that these hardcore, repeat predator offenders are addressed more differently than, say, the average street robbery suspect or things like that.
Chief, did that female witness sustain any injuries?
Yes, she did. She was wounded in the foot in the course of the gunfire.
A gunshot?
Gunshot to the foot, yes.
I don't know if you can talk about some of the specifics of that. What kind of a weapon was used? Was this a handgun? Was this something much more aggressive, or how would you characterize it?
It was a handgun.
Chief, in terms of the sequence of that event, I know you guys are still trying to pin down some details. Was the officer approaching on the right side of the car? Was the suspect still in the car when this happened? Is there any more light you can shed on kind of what exactly happened right before the shot fired?
Again, and we're still piecing a lot of this together, but on the second stop prior to the shooting, the officer was approaching on the driver's side. The subject was in the passenger seat, so the best description I could say is that he reached around the driver or pushed the driver out of the way and fired from that position in the vehicle.
Did the officer have any weapons drawn at any point?
It appears he was maybe making an attempt to draw his weapon as he was getting hit. He did not have his weapon out.
And where was the officer hit?
He had some upper torso and lower torso strikes.
I can't recall. Do you guys have any video of this exists that you guys are going to be reviewing?
We do have video cameras. Unfortunately, we've checked the chip on this, and he did not have it on. Again, this was a traffic stop, and per policy, unless something was unfolding that he would have had time to react to, he would have possibly had it, but we don't have any video.
Do you know what the initial traffic violation was that prompted the officer to pull him over?
I'm not sure, but I know that the plates, the registration on the plates, there was a problem with it. I think it was what's called a skip plate, and that's probably what he was investigating.
Is the woman's name Daniela Sanchez that was in that car?
At this time, I honestly don't know, but we can get that information and confirm.
Do we know how many shots were fired in the course of this at this point?
They just finished the scene criminalistics. I know there were several casings, at least 3 at the scene.
At least 3 shots?
Yes, at least. All by the offender.
Did the female have a weapon?
No, not that we know of.
Chief, you're saying that right after Officer Benner was hit, he managed to call out on his radio that he was in distress?
There was a broadcast that went out indicating that an officer had been shot and an officer was down. We're still confirming because it's a very emotional and loud type broadcast that we're verifying it was him, or there was a citizen that was on scene almost immediately that may have picked up the radio, and that's still being determined and investigated.
He was working alone, though?
Yes, a one-man car.
Chief, can you talk about that citizen? Because there was a boy out there last night who mentioned there was a gentleman who literally immediately went out there and started performing CPR. I mean, what an amazing person that guy must be, whoever that is, right?
Right, that citizen was one, and there was actually an off-duty paramedic from Albuquerque, an ambulance that was there and just didn't have her equipment, but we can get you that information. Those people are definitely heroes in our eyes. The efforts at the scene were amazing. It was unfortunate that the injuries were so severe.
Can you tell us about the efforts at the scene? Like how quickly, from the point that he was shot, did somebody get there?
It sounds like that one citizen was there within seconds, probably was walking in the area, is the best I can figure. I don't know what drew the paramedic there, but our officers, I think it was less than, within a minute or so that the first officer was arriving.
Do you have a time in which that distress call came in?
About 8:04 p.m.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the distress call, it said officer down?
We have a tape of it, and I'm sure that at some point we could release that, but it was something to the effect of officer needs assistance, officer down, officer shot, something along those lines.
Chief, you guys are known for community policing in this town. When there's an incident like this, it affects the city. Sometimes the policymakers revisit that community policing policy, maybe want to make changes. Are you at all going to consider changing that model at all?
Well, I mean, I don't know if at this point it's kind of early in the process to see. I mean, we do a critical incident review, and obviously, from the standpoint of everything that may have had an effect, from policies within our department that could be changed, equipment, you know, any type of issue that it doesn't so much look for criticism, but try to find a way to lessons learned perspective and do things better. So we will do that. I don't know if community policing would have had an effect. When you have hardcore criminal offenders, they don't care.
Chief, to piggyback on that, a lot of folks tell us that they move here because it feels safe, it's a quiet community. What do you and your department really need from the citizens right now?
Well, I mean, obviously, we want to reassure them that it is a safe city. You know, we can't put fences around our borders. We can't have checkpoints and things like that. People are going to come here. It's my understanding is that the offenders may have came here just for that reason, is they didn't have any other place to do any more crime in Albuquerque without being known. So they'll seek out territory. And again, it's a short ride down the hill and, you know, or up the hill from there to get to here. And we don't want them to ever think that this is virgin territory to be able to do that. So we're going to keep a strong stance, and our officers are always out there, you know, doing their job 24/7. And so, I mean, I think the citizens can be reassured that we'll continue to do that. And you know, this is an anomaly as far as we're concerned. So.
Is it pretty regular for the officers to go out on, you know, alone?
All our cars are one-man cars. We have 100 and some square miles, so in order to end a small staff department, so we, you know, basically it's more efficient, and it's pretty much the routine even in big cities these days.
Did the first responder come on the scene while the offender was still there before he had fled?
No, I believe it was after he fled. Witnesses had provided some of the description as what direction he had left, so it was probably right after.
How did the female got out of the car right away?
It's
The driver.
fairly quick, because he switched over and took over driving. So whether he pushed her out or she left voluntarily or just was trying to flee him and got into the way of his shots, it's subjecture on my part at this point.
Chief, we understand that you had maybe been in a different car when that gas station robbery happened in Albuquerque. Can you confirm that?
That's correct. There was
So
a.
he not only ditched the car he was in when he shot at Officer Benner, but then also stole another car before.
No, he didn't steal it, but from what for the surveillance is the location where we knew he possibly was staying, he was seen or believed to be seen leaving and getting into this other vehicle, and that's when that surveillance was initiated.
Are you sure or not if that is his car or?
I don't know whose car it is, but it's somebody that was in that of those 3 people that were with him, or 2 people that were with him. So.
Has the car been found, the car that he was in at the time?
The Durango, as far as I know, has not been found. So we'll probably still be looking for that. And if that broadcast is still good with you guys, if anybody would spot it, not to touch the vehicle and call police immediately. So.
And so if the distress call happened at 8:04 p.m., do you have an idea of when the initial traffic stop happened? I'm just curious about
I would say minutes before. Officer Benner was actually scheduled to get off duty at 8 o'clock, so it was a last-minute stop.
Going back to the officer himself, how is his family doing? I mean, I'm sure this is news that nobody wants to deliver to an officer's family.
It was difficult last night. Again, his wife is the only one who lives in this area, so she's pretty much alone except for close friends. We're going to remain with her. We have officers assigned liaison with her. Again, I mean, it's the reaction you would expect is the immense grief, shock, and a sense of loss that just we can't ever replace.
Does anyone know much about his life outside of work?
I don't have that right now. I don't know if you know, when we talk to the family, we'll get more information how much they. But I know he was a family man. He actually had a grandson or grandchild and 2 more on the way, so he was very proud of that. Any other questions, folks?
From out of the country?
He's born in the United States. His mother is from England. He's of English descent. If you heard him, he had that distinct English accent. He liked to be called Nigel, which is, I don't know if that was his middle name or his actual first name. But you know, from what I understand, he was very proud of. He had met his wife in England when he was in the Air Force, so he had connections in both the United States and Great Britain.
Chief, can you expound a little bit upon his service a little bit? And I believe this was his first law enforcement job, correct?
Yes. I believe he had 20-plus years in the military before he retired. Again, being that he's 49, he retired around the age of 45, and so a second career type opportunity for him.
And he served overseas, I presume, in Afghanistan?
Just I know he was in Great Britain. Other than that, I don't have all those details right now. Again, we can get that through Captain Rogers, our public information officer.
Chief, what kind of federal charges you may be looking at?
Well, it depends on the nature. There's different degrees. We obviously don't want to compromise any state charges with double jeopardy, but we want to make sure that the maximum penalty is possible. Possibly, and I can let is Ben here from the FBI?
Right here.
Okay, it's right next to me. This is Ben Bourgeois from the FBI, and we're talking about possible firearms charges, and I'll let Ben explain.
Just at the very beginnings of this investigation, and it's a multi-jurisdictional, what we are considering, and we've been in conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office about, are possible firearms violations based on his criminal history, and possibly other Hobbs Act violations based on the armed robbery of the store.
Do you know how he got the gun, or has there been any determination about the origin of it?
We're still investigating. We don't know if it was a stolen gun or it had been used in other crimes at this point. That'll all be, it takes some time to get to that bottom of that.
I'm sorry, Chief, to clarify, I know the truck the Durango hasn't been recovered. Has the gun been recovered at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we believe the firearm that was most likely involved has been recovered.
Did he still have it with him during the course of that other robbery, or was it left at the scene?
Yes, it was used in that robbery.
Okay. Chief, can you outline, I don't know if the charges have even been filed yet, but can you outline what the charges would be, at least at this moment, against Mr. Romero?
Again, that's going to be, the formal charges will be up to the district attorney, but obviously something related to the murder itself, probably an open count of murder, the felon in possession of firearm, he has warrants, the assault on the officer. I mean, there'll be a whole bunch of related charges. Again, I can't give you the specifics of the charge sections, but that gives you an overview.
Is there a steeper charge for shooting an officer than shooting someone?
Well, yeah, we'll have to talk to the district attorney. There is certain, enhancements, especially at the federal level, we would go that way, but again, it depends on whether it qualifies for those charges. Any other questions, folks? Again, you'll get an information sheet from Deputy or Captain Rogers, and he'll be available for any other questions afterwards if you have any specific. As this unfolds, we'll keep you posted. I believe you guys all been informed that we're going to do a release from the state police headquarters and transport them to the Sandoval County Detention Center, and so it should give you enough time to get down there if you don't already have crews down there. So appreciate your cooperation, and I do want to thank you for your concern for the family and cooperation and the respect for the family. It meant a lot to her last night and to their friends. So thank you from our department. Thank you, folks.
This concludes the press conference. I thank you for attending today to get the facts of this case out. Obviously, it's a very tragic story. We will be releasing additional details as they become available in the future.